This is a news-oriented broadcast, and all information is educational in nature, is not intended to be legal, securities, tax, or insurance advice. Securities are not offered or sold on the show. Please consult with the appropriate professional before acting on information heard during the broadcast.
Investment advisory services offered through Adjemi Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisory and fiduciary to its clients. Adjemi Financial Strategies, Inc., Adjemi Wealth Advisors, LLC, and the Retirement Income Store, LLC, are associated entities.
Americans are worried they won't have enough saved for retirement now more than ever.
Retirement is going to cost for many folks over $1 million.
We got here because we made a lot of promises that we cannot afford.
There are things I'm hearing about now, fees and taxes, that I never heard of before.
This is shaping up to be a disaster.
Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Adjemi Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado. Over the next hour, be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. Now, here's this week's Financial Strategies with your hosts, Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado.
Welcome back. Happy Father's Day weekend to each of you fathers listening today. We're glad to have you sharing it with us. This is very special for me on this Father's Day weekend to be sharing it with my son and you on Financial Strategies.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and happy Father's Day to you, Dad. I feel so blessed to have you as my father, taking me camping as a kid, teaching me and getting me the education that I need to succeed. I feel so blessed to have you as a mentor.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that very much. It certainly has been a pleasure being your father. You're certainly a wise man that I had worked diligently at trying to see that you would become, and you have not disappointed me. Thank you.
So Mary is a 78-year-old retiree who really enjoys going down to Florida every year during the wintertime. And what she does is she takes her required minimum distribution at the end of December each year, so she has the money so she can go down to Florida, get out of the cold, and really just kind of enjoy the weather down there. Now, 2018, she had to take a required minimum distribution, and she had scrimped and saved up $1 million in an IRA. So for her age, she needed to take $50,000. Now, some of us remember that September of 2018, the market was at a high, and it basically came down from there. When you take an RMD, you have to take the same dollar amount, so $50,000, no matter what your account value currently is. So September, her account value was $1 million, and the RMD was $50,000. Now, she takes it at the end of the year. So in December, her account value was worth $800,000 because the market had come down just about 20% from September. So this all sounds good. She's still taking $50,000, so it's not going to affect her. Now, we're going to get a little bit technical with Mary's monies. She had 10,000 shares at $100 a share in September. So Mary had to sell 625 shares to get the same $50,000 that she would have only had to sell 500 shares to get in September of 18. Now, shares can be confusing, but what that equates to is $62,500 in September's dollars to get the same 50 she needed in December. I'm Daniel Adjemi.
And I'm Andrew Adjemi, and you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. Welcome to today's show, folks. The title of today's show is Why You Should Care About the CARE Act. Well, hopefully you understand what's going on with the CARE Act that came out with this coronavirus. And CARE stands for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, Economic Security Act, the CARES Act. And so today we're going to be talking about why you should care about the CARES Act. And Daniel, you were telling the story about Mary and how Mary sold more shares in December of 2018 rather than if she had done it earlier in the year, and how that's detrimental. She had to sell more shares because she did it that way. So how does that pertain to the topic that we're dealing with today?
So one of the provisions that the CARE Act gives is it has waived required minimum distributions, or RMDs, for 2020. Why did they waive RMDs? Well, they waived RMDs because the government understands this reverse dollar cost averaging. They understand when the markets come down that you have to sell more shares to get the same amount of money, kind of like Mary. And what that equates to is when Mary's assets came back to $100 a share that they were in September of 2018, instead of having the amount of money you would think she would have, $950,000. She had $1 million. She took $50,000 out. She should have $950,000 so she can go down to Florida. Well, she doesn't, because she had to sell more than that 500 shares. She had to sell 625 shares. So when the value of her funds got back to $100 a share, she only had $937,500 in the account. She lost $12,500.
Wow, cannibalizing her assets by $12,000. Ouch. I mean, that's the difference between going to Florida for the winter. That's the difference between helping to pay for a grandchild's college education, or maybe buying a new car, or at least part of a new car, right? So that's a lot of money. I mean, where'd that money go? Tell the audience where that money went, Daniel.
Well, it went into another investor's pocket.
Right. Whenever we lose money in our accounts, it's going into somebody else's pocket. You know, it's not just going into thin air or anything like that. It's going into somebody else's pocket. And that can be very problematic when it comes to people in retirement, because what retirees today fear more than anything else is running out of money. They don't even fear dying as much as they fear running out of money during their lifetime. And this is the way that people run out of money, is by cannibalizing their assets, withdrawing from the principal. And in Mary's case, she had to do it because the required minimum distribution was simply that, required. And with the CARES Act, one of the things that they've done is say, we don't have to take required minimum distributions. And if it's been within a certain period of time, you can actually pay back the minimum distribution. So this is giving people an opportunity not to cannibalize. And, you know, the government understands the necessity of making sure that people don't run out of money. If people run out of money, the government's going to have to take care of people more. So it's interesting how the government is able to see this, but yet financial people, Wall Street people, and a lot of financial brokers and advisors and so forth can't see that because they just don't understand the concept of reverse dollar cost averaging. That's what Mary was doing, was as the market went down, she had to sell more shares so that when the market came back, she didn't come back to where she started with. So that is how people run out of money. Now, today's show is called Why You Should Care About the CARES Act. And we have a companion piece that we put together today. The piece for today's show that we have designed as a complimentary white paper is, Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs? If you'd like that white paper, it's only about a 2-page paper that will help you understand better what this is all about. And you can get that by calling our 800 number, 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616, or going to our website, ajme.com.
So I think it's really fascinating that the government understands about these RMDs and about reverse dollar cost averaging, about cannibalizing your assets, yet it doesn't seem a lot of professional financial people understand this same concept. The government waived required minimum distributions in the CARE Act so that investors didn't have to sell their funds at a loss. But another way to take care of this same issue would be generating enough dividends and interest to cover your RMD so you can take those dividends and interest instead of selling shares at all.
Exactly, Daniel. And what I find is that most people do not understand the difference between accumulation and distribution. Distribution is the idea that when it comes time for retirement, you want to start taking money out of your accounts, taking money out of your retirement savings so that you can live in retirement comfortably. But most people get that money and build that money through accumulating it. It's kind of like going up the mountain of retirement in a 2-seater sports car. Then when you get to the top of the mountain, you're ready to go across the mountain and then down the mountain. Do you really want to go down the mountain in a 2-seater sports car? Or would you rather go down in an all-wheel drive SUV? Well, switching from accumulating to distribution is a key piece that people forget about. And it's the number one mistake that retirees make with their finances, is what I see, Daniel. So the problem with that is that how they make that mistake is they keep their money in a growth mindset, an accumulation mindset all the time, as opposed to switching to dividends and interest to help them to get the money that they need. In this example of Mary, if she had her money sit up in a situation where she's getting dividends and interest, well, she could have gotten $50,000 in dividends and interest. I mean, many of you have been taught the idea that don't live off of the principal, live off the interest. If Mary was living off the interest, off the dividends and interest in that, and getting $50,000 a year from that, nothing would have happened with her principal. Nothing would have been cannibalized. She would have been able to get that money for the rest of her life while leaving her principal, for the most part, intact, depending on how she invested it. But how this pertains to the CARES Act is that with all the difficulties that have been going on with the coronavirus, and with what has happened with the market, with people being faced with various financial situations, the government didn't want to compound that problem. So they've said you don't have to take required minimum distributions in 2020. And if you don't know, in December of 2019, they changed the age from 70.5 for required minimum distribution to being age 72. So if you were born July 1st of 1949 or later, you can wait until you're 72 years old to take your RMD anyway. What's RMD? Required minimum distribution. That's the number that, according to however old you are, there's a different percentage you have to take out. It starts around 3.7% when you're 72 years old, somewhere in that vicinity. By the time you're 78 years old, it's 5%, and then it gets larger and larger percentage all the time. And it's what you have to take out of your IRAs, 401ks, and different, what as they call it, qualified plans. Roth IRAs are not part of this, so you don't have to worry about that. However, the minimum amount that you have to take out is simply that, a minimum amount. You can take out more if you like, but you minimally have to take out whatever that percentage is according to your age. Well, I see that we're coming up to a break here, and I want to offer everybody in our listening audience a copy of the white paper that we have that's a companion to today's show. It's called Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs? Are your allocations right for RMDs? And you're listening to Andrew and Daniel Adjemi on Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. And we're glad to be able to be here today. If you want this white paper, call us at 800-725-7616 or You can check out our website at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. And you'll be able to contact us there. If you have any questions, please let us know that as well, either by calling the 800 number or checking us out on our website to be able to ask your question, and we'll be able to answer that on next week's show. Thank you, folks, and we'll be back in a moment.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store. Have you missed any of today's program? No problem. You can hear all of our shows online anytime, 24/7 at agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
Welcome back. We are talking today about the CARES Act and why you should care about the CARES Act. The CARES Act covers a multitude of things, but really we broke down into three parts that we think are vital to retirees. We've been talking about required minimum distributions. We're going to get into charitable giving. So RMDs, required minimum distributions, basically say at 72 years old, you start having to take distributions out of your accounts. Now, prior to 2019, you had to start taking those at 70 and a half.
And this is out of IRAs and 401ks and 457s, those kinds of accounts, right, Daniel? This is not the Roth IRAs, folks. This is just the pre-tax accounts.
Qualified accounts, right? And the government has waived those required minimum distributions to give you some flexibility in 2020 with the craziness between the virus and health concerns and people losing jobs and these kinds of things. Now, a couple different types of required minimum distributions would be, you've heard of inherited IRAs. You don't have to take required minimum distributions on those. You don't have to take them on your 403Bs, on your 401Ks, on your 457s. That just allows us to have the flexibility we need, maybe to change our allocations. What are some other things you like or you've seen clients do since they don't have to take these RMDs?
Well, some clients say, well, I still want to take my RMDs, because some of them are actually taking that money out, paying the tax on it, and putting it into a wealth transfer situation so that they can transfer it to the next generation. Some people are taking those monies and they're using them to do Roth conversions at this point. Because, as you know, Daniel, RMDs cannot be converted to Roth IRAs. However, in the example of Mary could take the equivalent of her minimum distribution and convert all of that to Roth IRA this year. And so that money would become tax-free in the future, and it would lower the RMD that she would have to take in the future, all things being equal, but still have the money in her bank account, still have the money in her pocket overall, so that her assets are still the same. And the great thing about doing that now, when the market has fluctuations to it, I mean, right now the market is up from where it had been, but there's still some investments that are undervalued or at a loss. And people can convert those to Roth IRA at whatever the value is on the day that they're converted, which, if it's a 20% loss on the day of conversion and that money comes back to where it was after they convert it to a Roth, that would be a 20% totally tax-free increase to them. So this is just some of the things.
So if Mary had to take $50,000,
right?
And she had to take that, which means she had to sell her assets.
Right.
But now she doesn't have to take that. So she could either leave that in the account and not sell any assets, or you're saying she could convert those assets into a Roth.
Right. Exactly.
And then when they came back to the value, so that those 625 shares, if she converted those into a Roth,
right, that
$50,000 RMD, when the funds got back to $100 a share, it would be $62,500 again, right?
Right.
So she didn't lose anything.
Exactly. But if she converted that $12,500 would be totally tax-free. Totally tax-free.
Wow, I like that. Tax-free being when I take that money out, I don't have to pay any money.
Right, exactly. Hey, tax-free is for me. I love tax-free, right? The problem is there's not too many things that we can do that are tax-free today. Just to give a teaser, we're going to be talking in the future about tax-free retirement planning. That actually tax-free, not this tax advantage, but tax-free options that people have available to them. But that's one of the things that I see people doing today, Daniel, since they don't have to take their RMD, the money that they would have taken and putting them in better shape for the future. Daniel, it makes me think of our clients, Jim and Mary. And Jim and Mary came in and I told them that when we prepared their taxes in our tax firm, I congratulated them for not paying any taxes in 2019 for 2018. And they were happy that they didn't have to pay any taxes. But we went through a planning stage with them that I said, okay, what they determined that they want to do is pay a lot of taxes for 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then after that, they will have converted all of their money, all of their IRAs monies to Roth IRAs, and they will not be paying any tax in the future. One of the things that people don't realize is that when you're a married couple, that your tax rate will increase when one of you dies, because you're going to go from a married filing jointly tax rate to a single tax rate. And for most people, that means they're going to be paying at least a couple percent more, if not more than that, depending on what their situation is. So in Jim and Mary's case, in their situation, they will not be paying any more taxes going into the future once we have all their monies converted. So that puts them in a great situation, a great spot that they enjoy.
So you mentioned that when one of your spouses passes away, your tax rate goes up, you lose some deductions and things like that. Speaking about this CARES Act, we borrowed, $3 trillion, basically for all these different funding options to help with stimulating the economy throughout coronavirus. So we're going to have to pay that as a country.
Well, I didn't borrow that money. The government borrowed that money. I didn't borrow that money, Daniel.
Well, how do you think they're going to pay it off?
I think they're going to raise taxes. I think taxes are going to increase big time.
So not only do retirees have to watch out because we're all going to die
right
at some point in our life. So that could affect your tax situation, but taxes possibly could be going up to pay off some of these borrowings that the country has done as well.
That's right.
So Roth conversions could be a really good option for investors.
Oh, definitely. Exactly. I think it's inevitable that taxes are going to go up. I mean, currently in 2026, tax rates are going to be what they were in 2017. The now 12% tax bracket will be 15. The now 22% will be 25. The now 24 will be 28. And plus, they could be even higher than that in the future because of the government borrowing all this money. I want to offer to our listening audience today the white paper that we have that we have available and have put together to go in conjunction with today's workshop and today's radio program, which is, Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs? And we're also giving away a book, Return on Principle by David J. Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. Two great options that we have available for you today. Again, Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs, a white paper, and then the book, Return on Principle by David Scranton. Now, if you like either one of those things, please let us know or have a question for us. Call us at 800-725-7616. The operators are standing by to receive that, or contact us at agemy.com, agemy.com. The two words AgeMy spell our last name of Agemy. And if you like that, that's available for you. So, Daniel, this tax situation really is something that is concerning me going forward. And as we were just talking about, that people can take the equivalent of their RMDs this year and convert them to taxes. But for those people who are younger than 70 years old, they can do the same thing, can't they?
Yeah, I think the Roth conversion strategy is really something a lot of people should consider, with the fact that taxes most likely will be going up. There's a lot of different tax breaks. There's a lot of different options you can do, especially when markets are volatile. When assets are undervalued, you can convert the same amount of shares like we talked about earlier, or if you own bonds, you can convert the same amount of bonds over into a tax-free account, but you pay less taxes on that conversion because they're undervalued.
So you're getting a discount. You're getting a discount on the taxes. You're getting a discount. Well, you're getting a discount because if you have something that is $100 a share and you convert it at $80 a share and it goes back to $100 a share after it's been converted to a Roth, that's a 20% discount that you're getting. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. We're talking about why you should care about the CARES Act. And we're up against a break here, and we're giving away two pieces today. One piece is a white paper called Are Your Allocations Right for RMDs? And also we're giving away the book, Return on Principle by David J. Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. And if you like either one of these pieces, the white paper or the book, please call us at 800-725-7616 or contact us at Adjemi.com, AGEMY.com.
You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store. Time now for more of Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
All right, we're glad to have you with us today. We're talking about why you should care about the CARES Act. And you know, Daniel, recently I had one of our workshop attendees on the phone, and she was asking me the question about, I understand that with this CARES Act that I have more liberal distribution rules with my 401k and my IRA than I had previously. And the thing that she wasn't certain about was how those become more liberal. And what the situation on that is that you have more liberality in taking money out of IRAs and 401ks if with a COVID-19 related reason. And those related reasons are A, being diagnosed with COVID-19, B, having a spouse or dependent diagnosed with COVID-19, or C, experiencing a layoff, furlough, reduction in hours, or inability to work due to COVID-19 or lack of child care because of COVID-19. And that can get rather detailed in that. And if you are in our listening audience considering doing something like this, you need to talk to a qualified tax professional or financial advisor to get the specifics on that. But one thing people don't realize is that...
But this is a distribution exception for qualified plans for people who are under 59 and a half, correct?
Correct.
So there's a 10% IRS penalty if you take money out of a qualified plan before you're 59, basically retirement age, 59 and a half.
Right.
So younger people, if they're interested or they need money out of their qualified plan,
right,
they can take that out without that 10% penalty if it's a COVID-related distribution.
Correct.
Okay. So sorry to cut you off there, but I just wanted to make sure our listeners were understanding that this is for people who are under 59 and a half.
Well, if they are working and over 59 and a half, it allows liberality there. But if they're working and they're 59 and a half, the rules are different anyway. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be COVID-19. They can still get to their money. So what I find is that the government understands the need that once people reach retirement age, and when I say reach retirement age, the government is defining that as 59 and a half or older, that the government takes the handcuffs off of people and allows them to take their money out of their 401ks or IRAs without penalty. And a lot of people don't realize that if they're still working at a particular employer, they can take money out of their 401ks and invest that differently. Why would people want to do that, Daniel? Tell our listeners why some people would want to take their monies out of their 401ks and invest it differently than what their 401ks have to offer.
I was actually talking to a client about this just the other day, and she was trying to roll over her 401k because she wanted more investment options. They only allowed some funds, and she wasn't an aggressive person. She wasn't interested in the aggressive funds that they had offered. Now, this was actually right before this whole Corona thing happened, so her stuff was valued very highly before the markets really came down. So she called up and she said she wanted to roll that over, but because she had taken a distribution that same month, they told her she was not allowed to pull that money out. You can only take money out once a month.
Okay. That's crazy. Whose money do they think this is anyway?
Well, they think it's their money. And she was very upset that she couldn't take money out when she needed her money.
Right.
She couldn't take money out when she knew the market was high. She wanted to protect her assets. She wanted other options besides what the 401k offered her.
Sure.
We see that all the time. Some of our staff members, they'll call these 401ks and they'll fight the clients tooth and nail not to let them roll over the money because they don't want to lose that from assets under management.
That's terrible.
That's a whole nother conversation. But a big reason people like to roll those over is because it gives them more flexibility with their money. They worked hard for this money, really hard to save up this money, and they should have the ability to choose what investments they go into, and they should have the ability to decide when they want to take money out of their accounts without checking and getting permission from the TPA to make sure that's okay to do.
Right, exactly. And, I talk to people about that all the time, Daniel, and how they have other options than within the 401k. And one of the things that they often say to me, but I have a lot of options in my 401k. Why do I need more options? How would you answer that question if somebody were to ask you that, Daniel?
Well, if we go back to our first radio show and we talked about the teeter-totter and the aggressive, the moderate, in the middle of the teeter-totter, and the conservative. A teeter-totter, right? It's extremes. You go from one side, hit the bottom, shoot up on the other side, one extreme to the other. And we forget that there's a middle. That's not so extreme. It moves a little bit back and forth, but it doesn't fly up in the air, hit the bottom on the other side, right?
Right.
And so most professional people are all the way in that aggressive column, which is good for young people who are trying to accumulate wealth.
And most 401ks are there too, right, Daniel?
That's where 401ks are, exactly. They're in that aggressive section because they're designed for young people to build wealth over long periods of time.
Right.
So what people typically like to do when they're thinking about retirement, they're thinking about getting ready to start enjoying living off their assets, enjoy not going to work, enjoy hanging out with the grandkids, enjoy traveling. They worked long enough. It's time to start enjoying these things. They want to switch and pull out of these 401ks,
right,
that give you limited options on what you can invest in.
Which are primarily options are within the aggressive category that you're talking about, right?
Right.
Mostly all within the aggressive. Okay.
Exactly. Mostly aggressive. Some are very, very conservative where it's not even keeping up with inflation, but generally it's aggressive. And you can only pick a few options of what they offer you. You don't have all options, all investments available to you.
Right.
So your hands are kind of tied behind your back. And again, the government understands this. And they've given that provision of being able to roll your money generally after 59 and a half. So you can start investing in things that are appropriate for a retiree instead of the things that are for the 24-year-old who has no money and trying to build it up over time.
Right. Okay. So it gives them a lot of different options. It gives them the universe of options to be able to invest in if they take their money out of their 401k and put it into an IRA so that they can invest in whatever they want to invest in, not just what the company says they have to invest in. Right?
Right. Our clients like to have that flexibility.
Okay. Well, we're offering today white paper. Earlier I mentioned, are your allocations right for RMDs? But we also have a video that goes along with this. This is an animated video, only a few minutes long. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a video book. We're glad to send that to you today to go along with this, called IRAs, Roth IRA, and 401ks. And we'd like to send that to you to help educate you on what we're talking about today going along with this. I'm Andrew, and my son Daniel Adjemi, and you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. If you'd like that white paper, if you'd like that video book, please call 800-725-7616 or check out our website at agemy.com, AGEMY.com. Okay, so Daniel, tell us more about how and why people roll their monies over from 401ks into IRAs.
Well, we talked about the flexibility aspect, and, when you need your money, you need your money. So if you have to go through a bunch of hoops to get your money out of your 401k, that could cost you a lot of money. That could cost you a lot of aggravation. So that's one big reason. The other is people, as they get older, need to start switching into an income producing vehicle. Okay, income producing, income generating vehicles. Think about it like a renewable resource. Instead of hoping that your assets grow over time, increase in value,
right?
You imagine it paying you, okay? So if we went back to our very first story, if you had to take your $50,000 RMD,
right,
you have to hope that those assets have increased in value.
Right.
Right. So you can afford to take that $50,000 out without deplenishing your account.
Right.
Now, if that $1 million account that Mary had could produce $50,000 of dividends and interest.
Right.
If she didn't need that money, her account would be $50,000 larger.
Right.
That's growth.
Okay, growth.
If she did need that money, she could collect that $50,000, go to Florida, enjoy the nice weather down there, hang out with her friends, and just enjoy her retirement, even when we had that 20% correction back in 2018.
Right. So reasons to roll over 401ks would be for flexibility, gaining control over your assets instead of your company or this other bigger company controlling your assets. Some of the reasons also is for flexibility of the heirs. Should you die, that the heirs would be able to access that money easier. And then another aspect is that a lot of people don't realize when they're taking RMDs is if you have money in a 401k and 2 other IRAs, you have to take an RMD from the 401k and you have to take your RMD from the IRAs, whether it's all from one or pieces from each, however you want to do that. But you have a separate RMD for a 401k, but when you move it from a 401k into an IRA, there is no separate. You can pool IRAs. So it makes things much simpler for people from that angle and much easier to monitor and to manage. But the biggest concept is that what it will do as far as their investments go and allowing them to allocate in whatever they want to invest in, not just in what the company says to invest in. I'm also thinking about one of our newest clients, Daniel, who had a qualified plan through her employer, and she got divorced many years ago. And she decided she wanted to roll that over into an IRA with us. And when we went to do that, it was a nightmare in getting that taken care of. Because of her divorce, the qualified plan had no record of her divorce. So she had to go down to the town hall. She had to get papers from her attorney showing that they were divorced, showing that that money in that plan was hers and none of it was due her ex-husband. And it took our guys on our end quite a significant amount of effort to make that happen for her. But I am so happy that she came to us and wanted to do that because we were able to help her. I can't imagine what would have happened if she tried to just retire and take money out of that to live on. What would have happened for her? Because she probably would have gone on for years because she wouldn't have known what to do about that. But because we help people retire every day, we knew what to do and how to guide her through that process. So there's another aspect in the 401ks and why people want to roll over from 401ks into IRAs. But again, the biggest reason is for the allocation purposes so that they can invest in whatever they want to. And instead of investing for growth, when you're retired, you should be investing for something that's going to give you income or dividends. Because when you retire, it's not that you need a ton of money, because what are you going to do? You're not going to go spend all that money in one day. What you need is money that you can get interest and dividends on to live off the interest and dividends rather than living off the principal. It's kind of like the chickens and the eggs. If you have chickens that are always producing eggs, the renewable resource, as long as you just use the eggs, you're going to always have chickens laying eggs. But if you have to start spending principal, you're going to kill some of those chickens and you're not going to have as many eggs. But if you don't need the eggs, well, you can always take the eggs, buy more chickens. And when you buy more chickens, what do you get? More eggs. All right. Well, I'm glad that you're listening to us today. You're listening to Andrew and Daniel Adjemi on financial strategies. And we've been talking about why you should care about the CARE Act. First part of the hour, we talked about RMDs and what's happening with those. We've been talking about the distribution of RMDs and how once you reach 59 and a half, you can take money out of your RMDs without penalty. And if you're still in a 401k, you can roll it over from a 401k to an IRA. And then, of course, if you have IRAs outside, you can roll them over into other IRAs that will create chickens for you that produce eggs. When we come back from break here, we're going to be talking about charitable contributions and how the CARE Act has affected those and what's going on with those. But if you like to receive our video booklet that we're giving out today called IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, or if you'd like to receive the book Return on Principle by David J. Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store, we're glad to give that to you. Or if you have a question, call us at 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Or go to our website, Adjemi.com, AGEMY.com. And we'll be back in a moment.
You're locked on to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, powered by the Retirement Income Store.
The world has changed. Our economy has changed, and many things are going virtual. Meetings, school, shopping, even weddings. But your retirement is not virtual. It's real. With real food, healthcare, and other monthly bills that don't accept virtual money, like mutual funds and stock certificates. To keep you informed and up to date, Adjemi Financial Strategies has put together a series of webinar events. Our next webinar series is Savvy Social Security Planning, and our next event happens June 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern. We also have a series of webinars coming up on required minimum distributions in the new world. And those dates are June 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern and June 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern. To register for our free webinar events, go to our website, Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com, or call 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Make plans now to join us for our next webinar event.
After a certain age, you shouldn't be overexposed to stock market risk. Yet, you might still be trying to squeeze every last drop out of today's market. And although fixed income investment can offer less risk than stocks, it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice return. In fact, recently, some fixed income investments have actually outperformed stocks. But yet, you're still waiting to act.
To learn more about the Retirement Income Store, call your local retirement income specialist.
Adjemi Financial Strategies at 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Or visit us online at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
For baby boomers, here's something to think about. Will you have enough income during your retirement? Are you absolutely sure? Do you understand the difference between growth and income? How about bonds and bond funds? Are you 100% ready for RMDs? Do you have an estate plan? If you've said no to any of these, we can help. Right now, for the first 5 callers, we'll send you a free custom-designed animated video retirement kit to help you plan for the retirement you've worked so long and so hard for. These custom video kits are loaded with cutting-edge retirement technology, custom designed to your specific areas of need. There's nothing else like them. So call right now to receive your very own custom-designed animated video retirement kit.
Call Adjemi Financial Strategies at 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. Or visit us online at Adjemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemi in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemi in Colorado. Powered by the Retirement Income Store.
Don and Carol in 2017 gave $10,000 to their church throughout the year. And they were able to deduct this from their taxes. But in 2018, they were no longer able to itemize taxes because the standard deduction became $25,000. And they did not have enough to exceed that to itemize. But we told them about the QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution. Don was over 70 and a half at the time. He had to start taking his minimum distribution of $15,000 a year. So what he did was sent $10,000 of that every year to his church starting in 2018. And then he was still able to take the standard deduction of $25,000. So it was the equivalent of having a $35,000 deduction in his taxes. It moved them from the 12% tax bracket into the 10% tax bracket. It helped them save significant money in their taxes, and that's what's available to you as well. I'm Andrew Adjemi.
And I'm Daniel Adjemi, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about the CARES Act and why you should care about the CARES Act. Now, Andrew, what are you bringing up this charitable contribution story about?
Well, the CARES Act has allowed us to do a couple different things. So number one is that the CARES Act says when you're giving money to charities that you can have a $300 above the line deduction. And that's not what I was referring to. This is for people that give money. And if they're only giving $300 a year, $500 a year, they can deduct $300 of that because of the CARES Act. So that's good. That allows people to do things. Another aspect of the CARES Act has allowed is up to 100% of your adjusted gross income to charities in 2020, if you'd like. Of course, you have to afford to be able to do that. But for some people, they are able to afford to do that. But the biggest aspect is the qualified charitable contribution is that you can give your RMD directly to a charitable organization that would go to them totally tax-free because they're putting the money into the IRA or 401k before tax, and then it's going to the organization, so it's going totally tax-free. It's almost like an IRA in reverse, or doing a similar thing as an IRA, but when you're taking money out as opposed to putting it in. So the CARES Act has allowed for an extra ability for people to deduct more money when they're giving to charities. And that's a good thing for those people who are charitable minded.
So the CARES Act waived RMDs. You don't have to take your RMD anymore, but if you want to give to charities, you can still use that RMD money to give to a charity, and it's not taxable at all.
Exactly. Now, let me just clarify, Daniel, they've waived the required minimum distributions for 2020. So I just want our audience to be able to understand that next year, as far as we know, you're going to have your required minimum distribution again, but for 2020, you don't. But we have that available that you can still give to the charity of your choice directly to the charity from the investment company where the money is, and be able to do that on a tax-free basis and not even hit your tax return. That's really great.
A lot of people don't even know that this is available to them. And also another reason we've had quite a few clients want to roll over 401ks because right at their IRA custodian, so say you use TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab, and you have an IRA with them, you set the account up so that it can pay out a check once a year or monthly or quarterly, however you want. So that check comes right out of your 401k and it goes to your favorite charity and it's not taxable at all.
Exactly. That's fantastic.
Whereas if you took your RMD and then you wrote a check out of your checking account to the charity, your entire RMD would be taxable. And then unless you qualify for itemized deduction, then you wouldn't even be able to write off that donation to the charity.
Yeah, exactly. You know, once in a while I come across people that like to pay more taxes than what they have to. Really, I really have found people like that. But
I think you probably get a lot of that in Connecticut, but I don't think people out here in Colorado like that so much.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot more in Connecticut than Colorado, but nevertheless, you know, then of course there's what I call the voluntary tax, Daniel, you know, the lottery, right? The state lottery is the voluntary tax. You want to pay an extra tax. But the point is, there's not too many people.
And if you want to pay taxes, I mean, go for it. We do need roads and we need things, but.
Right. But why pay more than what you have to pay? Okay, so with that, another way that you can find out more about that is the white paper that we have designed for this show today, How to Give and Receive Charitable Contributions. You've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi. We're giving away today the white paper, How to Give and Receive Charitable Contributions. We're giving away a video book, IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, and then the hard copy book of Return on Principal. If you like any of those, or if you have a question, please call us at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616 or log in to agemi.com. That's A-G-E-M-Y, the two words, agemi.com. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi, and we'll look forward to checking in with you and talking with you next week. In the meantime, God bless. Keep smiling.
That's all the time we have for today. To speak with Andrew or Daniel off the air, call 800-725-7616. That's 800-725-7616. And for more information about Adjemi Financial Strategies, visit us online at agemi.com. That's AGEMY.com. We will be back again next week at this same time for another Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemi.